Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I think we have congregated here to talk about the role of illumination in space design, and I have with me architect Anirban Chattopadhyay, architect Sudip Choudhury, Sudipda, architect Parinita Chaudhuri, architect Debmalya Ghosh, and Mr. Subrata Sen, and myself, Aditya Goswami. So to start with, I think it'll be best that we, do a round robin of a question that comes to my mind. I'd start with Anirban, and then all of us can, pour in. So, what's the first thought or a project that comes to your mind that made you fall in love with the prospects of illumination in space design?
You mean to project?
Any project that comes to your mind, that exists, that comes to your mind that made you fall in love with illumination as a subject and the difference that it can make to space.
When I was studying architecture, that time, illumination was not a big part of our course, but we were on a study tour and I just saw an historical building, Agra Fort, which was excellently illuminated and very nicely done. It could have looked very haunted, but the way they did it at night actually attracted me. I stayed back, took a photograph of that building in B mode of photography. We had photography in our course, and I still remember that that was the point. I thought that lighting can be implemented in every building and it should be a part of the design. And later on, when I started practicing or designing, every time I started designing a project, I came up with a 3D model. At the time of rendering, I still remember that thing. Now this is the time I have to put on the lights so that I can get the correct night view photograph of that project I am doing. So this is my experience I'm sharing.
I think that's an important point that we just talked about, that in the absence of lighting, there are places that would look haunted. I think I'll just go to Sudipda, but before that, I think this is a point that we'll all agree here, that light or illumination is something, according to me, I'm just sharing my personal opinion. Lighting, according to me, is the art of controlling darkness. Things which are dark,
absolutely,
perhaps to us during odd hours would look haunted. On that point, Sudipda, any project that comes to your mind which made you started?
Yeah, thanks. Actually, long before I joined architecture, during my school days, I went for a South India trip with my parents. So that time, when we visited Mysore, the Mysore Palace as a building, we visited on a Sunday, and on Sundays the palace gets lit up. The entire, all corners of the building is fitted with that kind. That time it was like those incandescent lamps. We didn't have the efficient lights at that time, but it looks phenomenal. I saw that building in the daytime, and then when we saw it in the dusk, it was amazing. It was a different building altogether. How light changes the perception of a building. It has to be, that was the first time I could, then when I started studying architecture, there were many instances, many buildings, that time we were like informed that light can differentiate a building. Then we used to look at structures from a different perspective, but that view of Mysore Palace, it remained with me for the later part. So that's the first impression.
Yeah, so for me, light has a different experience altogether. In the sense, I am quite scared of light because in my experience, it was a series of disasters that I had created whenever I had tried to, thought it will be a very interesting lighting and all, depending upon the consultants or the suppliers or the manufacturers and all taking their experience. So it had been a series of disasters, mostly overlit, over illuminated, the places not really becoming appealing, till there was one gentleman called Konishko Shen. He used to be the stage lighting designer. He told me, Debmalya, if you want to design with light, you know what you have to do? I said, what? Design the darkness. So you have to design darkness to really play with light. And I'll come to the disasters later on. Maybe I'll explain a little bit what were they and what the experiences were. But one example I'll say, it was a tiny bar we are doing for the CCFC club. It was an old building where we added a glass addition to the terrace, and it was a bar. They wanted a sports bar, and there I tried the lighting design myself. Mind it was before the LEDs, so we only had halogen lights or spotlights. So CFLs and spotlights mostly. So I played as much as possible. I would want this portion dark and this light and all. We did it. And the evening before the inauguration, when the lights were all on, I came and I said, shit, it's really over illuminated and the place was looking terrible. And I was really disheartened. I even painted, like when I play with light, I play with the texture and color also. So if I am trying to focus on one side of the column with the wall, I will make that a light color, the other side I will make it dark, paint it dark. So I did everything, but it completely was a disaster, over illuminated. Right. So when I was leaving, I told the electrical worker that, can we dim it? Can you add some dimmers? So, and that's all I said, and I went back. But during the inauguration, when I came the next evening, he has put dimmers and he had dimmed all the lights. And it was magical. It was delightful. And I still remember the president of the club, when he had a nice gathering and inaugurated, he said, well, we got something that is more than we expected. So, and, that is a moment in the life of an architect. So yes, a light can make or completely break a space. It can make it delightful or it can make it disaster.
On that note, I think before we go to Mr. Sen, I think here all in sundry, I would like to share that we as architects, we are all very scared of our outcomes, all our outcomes. So I think we might put up a brave face when we design, but we are all tensed from inside. I think that's the point that you summarized. On that note, I'd go to Mr. Sen that from corporate, I think it's very important that, for you guys to be in love with illumination as much as we are. On that count, what made you started, what project, like I put the question to all of us, what project made you started to, come to the role that you are currently in?
Yeah, first of all, it's a privilege for all of us here from Eveready to be part of this August gathering. But for me, I should say that light is very close to the emotions of each and every individual. And I think light denotes a celebration. Because if we go back to our days when we didn't have any electric light, we used to celebrate Diwali with lights only. So, but with the time, there are instances where we overdo the light, as Debmalya said. And that's why there is always a sense of uncertainty what will be the final outcome. And just to take your point, when I started my career, I had the privilege of working with Mr. Kanishya. I was just picking up the luminaires to support him to do a demo. But he is just awesome. I mean, as he rightly said, it was designing the darkness. And we primarily from a lighting manufacturer's side, we always believe that we have to sell more lights. And that we as manufacturers, as marketers of light, needs to understand that lighting needs to be designed in a proper way. And then only a manufacturer's name, when they collaborate with people like you, can excel in their domain in which they're working.
Thank you, Mr. Sen. I think I'd want to just put question to Parinita Di. Just tell me a moment or a start. When does lighting strike your mind? Not lightning, lighting strike your mind while you design spaces? And I'm sorry, I'll just add a small corollary to that. How do you think light and illumination affects the perception of space?
See, lighting design, when to initiate, basically, first of all, as my friend said, that lighting is a very important architectural tool, a very powerful tool. Rather, even as Debmalya said, that it can make or break a building, right? Means you can get a wonder out of it, or you can get a disaster out of it, right? So, and we as architects, we are always very thoughtful, not about the lights, colors, form, shape, and everything of the building. We are always very apprehensive that what will be the final outcome. So, being an architectural tool, it's an emotion, something which will actually, create the space, give vibrancy, give, a sort of drama to the space. What my experience has shown, initial days, what usually we architects do is that we have the building plan ready, we have the form, the shape and everything of the building ready, and then we have the interiors ready from our point of view also. We create those in three-dimensional spaces, and then we think of the lighting designers that, okay, now let us get the designers or the lighting vendor on board and ask them the type of lights that we can actually incorporate into this particular design or vision that we have created. But fortunately or unfortunately, today light is not just a luminaire or an artifact to see. It is something which has to be integrated from day one. Because now we are thinking of in-ground lights, we are thinking of cove lights, hidden lights. It is not about the fixture, the look. It's all about the feel. You can feel the space, you can feel the emotion. So it has to be integrated from day one. It has to be a part of your building. It has to be, incorporated in the built spaces. It has to be in the architect's mind from day one, from where the lights will be fixed to where the electrical cables will be going, how it will be reaching my, as you said, these drivers and everything, how do I camouflage them? So all these things has to be thought in day one when you have initiated your design. And secondly, the space, this is one thing, as I said, that it has to be day one. It can't be that you come, the lighting consultant or the designers or the vendors come in later. The architect has to know the equation behind everything. He has to understand that where I want the light, where I want what type of impact I want. A wall washer or a in-ground light or a up lighter or down lighter. And whatever impact you want, that you have to have it day one in your mind. And regarding my perception of spaces, definitely. Perception of spaces is something when you are creating a space, you yourself know what you want about the space, right? You want it to look bigger. You want it to look, more cramped, because light is something which can actually, change the space's perception. It can, a darkness, as Debmalya said, darkness can create a different sort of impact. And a small amount of light, interplay of light and darkness together can create another impact. You have these mood lights nowadays, mood lights which can create another sort of impact, which will obviously vary from space to space, on the basis of your design philosophy and everything, it will be changing. So definitely the lighting techniques, the tools which the lighting consultant may support you has to be there in your mind, and the perception of space will depend upon all these moods, the moods of the intensity of light, my darkness and shadow, the role it will play. All these things can change the entire perception. You can have a brighter space, making it look feel bigger, brighter. You can have intensity can go low and it can make it more cramped. So these are the roles that the light play in the entire design philosophy.
So that I think I'll take the same question to Anirban. I think it's the point that Parinita just mentioned. That light and the thought of light gets started with the very inception of any design that we work with. So tell us about your opinion, walk the talk with us on the same question.
Okay, like you just said sometime back, like we architects are very skeptical about what our results will be. But at the same time, when we start designing, we already have a vision of the design in our mind. And in that vision, if you think carefully, the lighting is already there. Okay, now actually when the output is coming out, like in the form of a 3D or something like that, like you are developing a 3D model or going for a 3D rendering, at that time you try to put your that imagination that you had, that vision that you had into that part of the practical outcome of that thing, and you try to get as close as you can to your thought process and imagination, to your philosophy, whatever you may say. And after that, when you get the output of it, then also you try to, when you are practically implementing that on the site, at that point of time you also will try to get that light exactly like what your imagination, then your 3D and at the site. At times it happens that it gets messed up because due to the illumination, mainly due to what I have personally experienced is due to the illumination factor. Okay, in my imagination I did not have the lumen value of it. Okay, and when the 3D was done, at that point I adjusted as per my visual thing I saw in the computer screen, and at the end of the project, when it is done, it's according to the product supplied by our vendors. Okay, so as much as we can coordinate these three stages of design and thought process, I think it will be the output will be good. But for me, it first comes when I envisage the whole design, when I'm thinking of it, before I put it into pen and paper. Always, I think every architect does that. You just, when the project comes, you visualize things about that project, and the lighting has to come then.
Thank you, Anirban. I think talking about 3D simulations and the kind of renditions that we architects nowadays do with advancement of softwares, etc. My 2 cents here is that the more advanced the softwares are getting, the more frustrated I am becoming towards my designs, because no 3D simulation is, according to me, good enough for matching the visualization that we have in our mind. I mean, and sorry to all corporates, all manufacturers, I think to me sun is the hero. So we are all sustained by the sun.
When doing the 3D, we do that. We give area lighting there, right?
So it never matches up. In fact, talking about the hero, I think I'll just put a question to Debmalya that, according to you, tell us a project of yours where you think lighting attained the status of hero more than any other design feature. Difficult, but yeah, I think we can just hear any.
Okay, so to start with, in every project I think about the light from the very beginning, as I said. And when I mean light, it's sunlight, it's and artificial light both. When the hero is not there and the heroine moon is there, so we need supportive artificial lights, and thanks to the Eveready and other manufacturers, we get this brilliant, beautiful array of lights. And it's all depends upon how we are using it. That's the main thing. They are manufacturing it, so it's upon us and the engineering team and all how we are using it that is going to create the magic if we can. So one particular project I can definitely say, because there was literally no other element, it was only light. That was the plaza in front of RDB. So I don't know if any of you have visited it or seen the photograph. So there, what we had, it was just a street, only some basic seating. So there was no architecture there. So what we thought, we'll make this large towers of obelisks of crystal light, and light will change and all. So as architects do, they make beautiful renderings and all. And we made these glass towers, put light inside. And the first day we switched the light on, again it was a disaster. Because lights pass through glass. In our 3D views, we made those glass thing glow, but it was looking like all the structures can be seen, the light inside can be seen. It was again a horrible disaster. So we literally had to experiment how to make that glass glow, how to make because you have a steel structure on which we have put glass and we have put a light inside. So when the light is glowing, everything inside is getting bare, the glass is becoming practically transparent. So we are seeing the ugly steel structure and it's hitting the light. It's not creating that glowing image that we wanted to. So then we experimented with various layers. Well, I did frosted the glass, but even that didn't work. So it was frosting of the glass, then applying papers to it and seeing which paper of what thickness and what density would create that effect that we were creating. And finally we could achieve that, which was actually had to be done with physically there on the site. And it's amazing now. And it has become, it's being called the Times Square of Kolkata or something like that, which we really not very fond of. But anyway, the young people has really taken to it, and it has become the hero, let's say, the light.
So I completely agree with Debmalya on that point. That I think as much as we architects feel that water is one of the biggest enemies of a building, when we cannot control light, then light is one of the biggest enemies of space. So it all depends on how we handle light. On that front, I think Mr. Sen, as a roundup to going forward to future, what are the emerging technologies of light that excite you the most, and how do you think those future or emerging technologies would alter the way we think going forward?
First, one important point, you said sun is the hero. For all manufacturers of lighting, sun is always the reference point, because when we compare a term called color rendering index, we always take sun as the 100. And all our lighting products which we introduce is reference to that. And as we go close to sun, we say that it is ensuring that the objects under that artificial light is giving that true color output. So that's a very important optical characteristics which there is a specifications which ensure that sun is taken as the hero or the reference point. Now coming to what new developments are happening in lighting. First of all, LED lighting is the most, you can say, a metamorphosis or a transformation of lighting which has happened. First of all, it has made the entire lighting scheme very efficient. It has created a miniaturization of the entire light source, which all of you architects will appreciate that, because you are able to hide or camouflage the lighting source and you are able to get different types of effects. Now what LED lighting is giving is you can have different color temperature, which gives you a lot of flexibility when you design your spaces. It gives you different color temperature, different you can say different beam angles, which is giving lot of flexibility, and you as creative people are able to give justice to the spaces what you are doing. So this is how lighting has progressed, which maybe 15 years back there was a lot of limitations, especially of the light. You have to select a particular light source, and there was a lot of you can say lot of optical limitations there, which LED has ensured that it is absolutely eliminated now. Now another important factor which is coming up is the smart version of LED sources which we are bringing into the industry. It's giving you a lot of control. You can do a remote control arrangements of that. You can monitor your light sources, so that if at all there is some replacement needs to be done, you can do a planned replacement also for that. So these are the things which are happening very quickly, giving all the end users, the designers, lot of flexibility to design their spaces.
Thank you, Mr. Sen. An extension to that question, Mr. Sen, I think I would like to denote smart as unsmart in today's context of climate change and the concerns over sustainability. Talking about sustainability, how do you think the sustainability concerns would govern our future light choices, as in luminaire choices?
See, first of all, LED lighting brings in lot of sustainability, because you are using very less electrical energy and ensuring the maximum output of light from that. That's a very important aspect. Another important aspect, since LED works on DC, we have brought in lot of solar sources. So that also is actually bringing a lot of sustainability. All sorts of light sources, especially in LED, can be sourced through solar, where you do lot of activity on the sustainability. There is another activity is lot of components being used. I mean, especially with the 3D printing coming in, you can design your light sources around with lot of sustainable bill of materials in that. So that also gives lot of support in ensuring that we do have a very sustainable process of creating light sources.
I completely agree to that, and especially your footnote on 3D printing as tools to perhaps manufacture luminaires in the coming future. Sudip da, my query to you on the elements of design would be, while we design, according to you, according to your opinion, what are the common aspects of design that are generally overlooked during, designing light and space, or space and light? I mean, they are all the same thing. So what are the things that are commonly overlooked, you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly said, when we are designing, the hero is the sunlight. So what we are designing is how to replace the natural light by means of replicating through artificial light. But there has to be a moderation. I mean, you cannot totally defactorize the sunlight while designing a space, or you cannot also depend on the sunlight while designing a space. So there has to be a balance. Like, we have to understand what kind of space we are designing. Like, if it's a, say, office space, then we all know that the workers that are working there, they have their maximum efficiency if they're working under natural light. I mean, there is a huge percentage of increase of efficiency if the natural light is present. But at the same time, natural light brings with it a lot of problems. There's a glare, there is heat, and a lot of other things which we need to control. So these are some aspects which we need to take into mind while we are designing a space, as to how we can control the bad things of the natural light and replace with the artificial light. At the same time, talking about glare, the glare can be from the natural light, and it can be also from the surrounding that we are designing. That's again, like the materials that we are designing, that can also give us glare. I mean, we have to also think about what are the materials that will give me the right kind of effect that I am looking for. Then, I mean, we also have to look into the sustainability aspect. I mean, nowadays we get a lot of benefits for going into a building which has a green rating. So for that, there are number of things which we need to take care in terms of lighting design as well. I mean, we need to look at the LPD, the lighting power density. I mean, while designing, we need to think about what kind of fittings, fixtures will give me the same amount of light, less amount of glare, but less amount of LPD compared to a base building. Coming to external building design, I mean, external designs, we need to think about the lighting of the spaces, and at the same time not polluting the atmosphere. I mean, that's a very important aspect of designing the outside space. I mean, there are for a green building also, you need to look at those aspects as to how to reduce the direct pollution of the nature while you are doing the design. Then you have to look at the kind of what kind of temperature, the color temperature. I mean, if you are designing a retail space, if you are designing an office space, if you are designing a residential space, each area or room will have its specific requirement. You might need a cool light, I mean a higher Kelvin for some spaces, a lower Kelvin for some spaces. For that, we have to go back to the simulations as to how we can best get the effect that we are desiring. I mean, these are some of the aspects that we usually don't integrate while thinking about a design, but these needs to be looked into while we are taking care of in our design board.
I think that was a very apt and serious answer. So I think we just shift gears and I'd just go to Parinita Di. Maybe a quirky question to you. If you're allowed to choose a space anywhere in the world, which, let's say you have a magic wand and you would transform that space to anything by only changing the lighting, then which space would you choose and why?
See, I would rather not go to the world but stick to my Kolkata only, because there are several places where turning a magic wand is very likely. First of all, I would like to say is the main Dalhousie Square, the entire space, the beautiful heritage buildings. Again, I would say I've just returned from Azerbaijan and there I saw the Nizami Street. The streets of Singapore, the streets of St. Petersburg. They also have these similar heritage buildings, right? You have the lovely architecture, but after evening that entire area becomes these buildings turns like big huge ghosts. Nobody feels like going there. So just a touch of illumination and lighting design with some sort of use being incorporated on those buildings, you can turn it into a happening space. It can become a street where people will like to visit after the evening, walk down the lanes, do a lot of things can be done with those buildings. So that is what I feel bad about when I see these buildings, that particular area, which actually becomes totally, empty after evening and people are not willing to go there. Big ghosts standing there, lovely architecture. So if I really had a magic wand, I would really do that.
So why I asked that to you is something mischievous in my head. I think last March, 2 months back, I attended the Light and Building in Frankfurt, where it's the largest exposition in the world of lighting. Happens once every 2 years. Now, interestingly, talking about ghostly buildings and haunted Agra Fort, is that a very exposition which talked about lighting and lighting and lighting. The moment the hours of the expo were closed down, the very space turned into a ghost. So I was actually moving around and wondering that how can that be changed? Of course we couldn't help it because all the participants were gone, but yeah, I think it turns very ghostly.
But then there are spaces which you can create where people will want to stay hours after hours, because if you see the Nizami Street, if you see Valencia, Spain, I've been there too, luckily then. But then I've seen people wandering there for late evening, 3 o'clock in the night. People, it's something that you will wish to stay for long hours. So that what happens is that when you have the lovely, we as architects, displaying of architecture is also equally important to us. So when you display architecture through lights and you enhance the beauty of the building in the evening hours, when you can actually accentuate each and every element of the building through those light and the impact it plays, you can create a drama in that entire space. So why not? And you will see automatically what you're saying. You've gone where there was a purpose of people actually closing down after some time. But here, the closure will never happen. It should be a 24 hours access to everybody. There should be shops and not only shops, you have offices, shops and everything out there. You have utility things there and fun things there where people will be attracted to go any time of the day. Even after evening to late night, it should be something which people will be compelled to go. That a beauty in architecture will be exploded there.
So it's either like Debmalya said, that either the heroine, the moon, should be out all nights, or a bit of lighting for all of us.
Right.
On that note, Debmalya, I think a different question to you. What is a startling effect that you achieved in one of your projects, which you never thought you would achieve, or neither the client ever expected that? Can you think of something?
Let's just give that example in my first opening. So that was a place which, when I created, when all the lights were on, it was a disaster. And then just with the dimmers, when they were dimmed properly, and the opening night, it was a fascinating experience. It was a delightful experience. And the client themselves were really surprised. They said, we expected something good, but not this great. And it was, believe me, it was 90% light.
Yeah, that's I think the greatest pat on the back that an architect can have.
And if you want any better, that place is not under my access anymore to that extent. But if you want to see a change in light and change in space quality, drop into my studio any evening. I'll show you how it's transformed from a workspace, lovely nightclub kind of atmosphere for my friends to have a drink.
Oh, fantastic, guys! We are already talking about an after party. Yeah. So I'm so happy that we earned ourselves that. Thank you. So coming to you, Anirban, I think what the future beholds, I'd put questions of the future to you, because in terms of years of practice, you are the youngest amongst us here. So how do you think the future would unfold? What kind of lighting prospects do we have, and how would that help in the future spaces that we create?
See, the future of light, what I think will be communication. We'll have communication through lights. Okay.
Wow. I love that.
Right now, what we are having is we are designing isolated projects with buildings and with the array of materials that we are having right now. I am sure companies like Eveready and other manufacturers come up with future lights with the use of nanotechnology and AI. We can have communicative buildings. Like the building lighting will speak about the people who are using the space. It will, as a community also, like say for 15th August, every building will coordinate themselves together to make a scenario out of the whole city. This is the future, I suppose. And other than that, if you talk of some significant coming future of lighting, there are two things. One is related to architecture, like lighting design, I think will get integrated with beam. Okay, with beam already there is one Mr. Charles Eastway. He is working on it. He has developed some plugin with beams so that lighting can be designed while we are designing the whole building. So this will help us. You can understand the output will be way measured than it is right now. And apart from that, one more thing that came across me was Li-Fi. You have heard about Li-Fi? Li-Fi is like communication and Wi-Fi using light, LED. Okay, so this is a much more cleaner, greener way of using data. Like it does not have any health issues. It is way cleaner. So I think this is what is upcoming.
So is that your message to the younger and aspiring architects about the future of light?
Yes, future upcoming and future architects should look into the factor, being an architect, into the beam part of it, because it will help them in their career. And other than that, they have like every architect like us, they will also have the responsibility towards this world. Okay, to produce something sustainable. So they should press for this Li-Fi thing in future, and also I think they should press towards the communication part I told about, that lighting in the buildings and everything, so that it does not remain like a sideline thing. It becomes the main frame of a design. It speaks with you. So
thank you. Debmalya, I think let's get this slightly interesting in the sense that a project done by you or anyone else's where you think light made all the difference and you're learning from it. I'll just mention mine. I mean, I just take this liberty of mentioning mine. I love I mean, I love experiencing the evening at the Jewel at Changi Airport, where if you stand at the base of the funnel, then the way the funnel funnels out the evening chaos on the outside above and filters it with water, creating all the effects of light. I just simply love it. What about you?
Well, when we were completing this Snehodaya senior living facility, it's a 10-story tower, and we had an atrium in the cut out in the center for 10-story. And the then chairman of HIDCO, Devashishan, he gets into the details. It's very nice of him. So he said, we need a chandelier there hanging. I said, it's already there. Let's go and have a look. So I took him to just below, and he looked up.
Like a light well, yeah.
No, not a light well. We had a concrete slab with tiny holes. Yeah. So the light was natural sunlights were coming in, and the entire place was having sun drops, and which shifts with time. So yes, light can be used in a very. I said, we don't need a chandelier. That is a chandelier. He said, yes, wonderful. And also one of our college project for the Ambuja group, you might have seen images of that. So there also we placed a step plaza which goes up to the 3rd floor, and on top of it we used a pergola in a very simple way, and how the shadows were formed, and it's changing with the day and every day. So that was the project, like the most attractive part of the project. So those are natural lights, and obviously when we go for design lights, artificial lights again, Snehodaya itself, then we did the TCS. There is one for the Ambujas also. We did the gate light illumination. The plaza is there. In fact, in every project, light is the most powerful, one of the most powerful element that we use to make the space really delightful. I was talking about disaster all through, but actually, if it's rightly used, it's a wonderful delight. Light can be. And I'll just take a liberty a little bit, and I'll try to give the advice that I was being asked for, that what can be done for the lighting industry. In my experience, let's see what are the steps in the lighting design of the process, like from the designing of the architect to handing over. There are a few phases. The first, obviously, the architect who's designing overall the space. So we have a vision. Okay, we want this amount of light or this kind of space quality overall, which has the color, texture, material, light, shape, size, everything. Now, once we take the lighting design in itself has two parts. One is the design and aesthetic part of it, and one is the engineering part of it. I think one of the biggest drawback at this moment in the industry is that the people who come as the lighting designers with the company, they are mostly engineers. It's one thing to calculate the lux level and the lumen level and the power factors and others, and the other thing is to design the light.
To have a heart.
Yes. So I remember a young electrical engineer. He wanted to be Debmalya, I want to be a lighting designer, illumination designer. What do I do? I said, look out. You see how the green of the leaf changes with different times of the sunlight. That you have to understand to become a designer. You have to look at the Impressionist painter, Monet. You look at Monet's painting and you have to understand the effect of light. That is a different aspect. And putting it in the software and seeing what is the lux and the lumen level, that is another aspect. I am not demeaning any. They are both important. But what's happening is that most of the designers who come to us, like lately we had a project in which we invited several companies, and I'm very sorry to say the people who came, they were like disasters for me. Like I couldn't explain it to them. No, we are lighting design. Our lighting designer has done it. So there is a difference between engineering and designing. So it was very difficult for us to explain it. So that aspect, and after now we have done the designing, now we have selected the luminaires. There is the third part which we are really having a tough time for this project. That is the lighting management system. We all talk about sustainability very easily and we say, okay, we'll have dimmers, we'll have lights, occupancy sensors and all. But who does this coordination? So in an entire office space, which place will be deemed, where will be the occupancy sensor, where will be the emergency lights, what will happen? So our lighting designer who was charging a bomb and all, and then we said, what happens when there is a disaster, like where will be the emergency lights? Well, that we don't know. I mean, if you put that, the engineers know. I said, okay, but if the engineers put in the emergency light, then the entire lighting scheme goes for a sixer. Well, no, they will glow only during the time of emergency. I said, if it only glows in the emergency, who guarantees that it's working during the time of emergency? I'll rather have this light as the emergency light, so I know it's glowing. So when all the power is cut off, only this light keeps glowing. So all this, what happens on a Saturday when the entire floor of 300 people, only 10% comes? We all know about occupancy sensor, but who's doing that work to decide where the occupancy sensor will be, how the zoning will be, how there's a huge gap between this. I mean, what we say and what we do, what we imagine is going to be, all the equipments are there, all the things are there, but to tie them together for the rightful end, that's I think where we really need to look into.
Thank you, Debmalya. We almost have reached the end of our conversation, and as is usual, normally during a panel discussion we have question and answer, but here the audience is voiceless. So I thought we'd do a rapid fire amongst us, and I think that'll be a good way to call off the conversation. So what I'd do is I'd mention some types of buildings, and I would request you to name a project on that type of building and maybe a salient feature of lighting that you have a recall value on. So yeah, Anirban, so if I get started with you, I would say an airport.
Airport, you already told, Changi Airport, due to that chandelier lighting there.
I'm so sorry, I just answered you before. So yeah, so maybe I can just
Another one is Mumbai Airport. I like the pattern they have created, like the feather of that peacock, and the lighting is complementing it too very well.
Yeah, fantastic. I think I just love the Mumbai Airport T2 because apart from the pattern that it creates, I think that's just outstanding, and it carries forward the principles of art.
Yes.
So, Sudipda, coming to you, a museum.
I have visited a museum in San Francisco where there is they have used the natural light quite well. I forgot the name of the. It's a museum where you have a lot of wildlife, or it's not the Getty Center. It's in Los Angeles. The Getty Center is in Los Angeles. I've been to the Getty Center also. That's also very nice, actually. This San Francisco, which has the entire roof is a green roof, and they have punctures on the roof to bring in the natural light. It's quite nicely done. So that's the building which I can recollect as of now.
Fantastic. Parinita di, as a roundup, hotel.
In Kolkata, my experience of the hotel was the Great Eastern Hotel, where the illumination design, the inside part was really done well because it was a existing heritage building with which the new part was actually, attached to. So I would say Great Eastern, the Lalit Group, Great Eastern. Yeah, wonderful.
I couldn't agree more. Debmalya, high rise.
High rise with lights, like inside high rise. If you're talking about residential,
Anything, any high rise as in a skyscraper, anywhere in the world.
like where the light is outstanding.
Yeah, could be anything. Yeah.
Honestly, I can't think of any building that's strikingly standing out for light. Sorry, I have to pass. Honestly, high rise, I really couldn't think of any. Why don't you help me out on that?
So, difficult for me to auto answer, but yeah, I think the Burj Khalifa.
Like 42 itself is a live example of that building, because the facade lighting is not there, but you can see the general lighting, the chandelier,
in a way, yes, because I think for us architects, any building which looks occupied looks warm to us. So, in terms of facade light or not, but any building which looks occupied. But I would mention Burj Khalifa because, during event days, I think it drapes lights very well. I think
It's very
that's-
contextual.
One thing I would like to tell,
Flaming
any sky
towers,
skyscraper na,
the flaming towers, Charbaagh is wonderful. The entire texture of the building actually plays the city itself. So the flaming towers, you've got these 3 wonderful towers which go out like flame, the forms like flame. And the external facade also reflects flame, and the light impact is wonderful. How it is really
fantastic. Anirban.
I was telling that any skyscraper na, the pattern that happens during the night when the lights are on and off, and every time it looks different.
It's like an occupied pixelation. So,
Every time it looks different.
yeah. I think that's the point that Mohit you made
Yeah.
about the 42.
Once again, you're invited to my studio. So in the night, we have this horrible looking residential building just opposite to it. We have a full glass, but in the night time, there is no facade illumination. So the ugliness is hidden.
So darkness
And only-
helps. Yes.
Darkness helps,
Yeah.
and only the lights glow. Every day it's a new pattern, and in the Diwalis they put diyas and lights on it. It's a fascinating view. So another reason to drop in.
Fantastic. Mr. Sen, to close, a monument that you can think of.
See, in my view, lighting is always an identity. I mean, it identifies a city, it identifies a monument. So to select a particular monument is very, very difficult, but still, being a Bengali, I think Howrah Bridge is the lighting of Howrah Bridge is an identity which everybody should appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And incidentally, not in my present
Applauds
assignment,
to that,
my
yeah.
earlier assignment, I was involved into that project, so it has got a emotional connect also with that.
I think, Sudip da?
I would also like to add to the city's monument that speaks about the city, the Victoria Memorial. I mean, the way it gets lit up when you are flying into the city,
Yes,
you can see that
yes.
glowing. I mean, that
Yeah.
gives a very nice feel. As a city resident, you feel great.
Yeah, you can find out the showcase. So yeah, couldn't agree more. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we hereby conclude. Thanks to all my panelists for this engaging conversation, and we have an after party at Debmalya's office whenever he chooses us to visit. Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you.